seat. Congressman Joe Sestak won the Democratic primary. Specter switched sides from the Republican Party last year. Sestak will now go up against the former Republican Congressman Pat Toomey come November. One of Senator Specter's biggest supporters, the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, Ed Rendell, is with us. He's in Harrisburg. He is also the former chair of the Democratic National Committee, so he knows what he's talking about when we are dealing with campaigns here. Governor, good to see you this morning.
Hi, Jane. Good morning.
I want to start with a challenge because I know you're up to it. 30 seconds or less. Why did Arlen Specter lose?
Because he's an incumbent, 30-year incumbent in a year that incumbency is a terrible burden, and because he switched parties, and that always is difficult for the voters in the party that candidate switches into to accept.
Simple as anti-incumbent anger, you think?
That was burden number one. Burden number two was he switched parties recently, and that's difficult for voters to accept someone who was on the other side endorsing Republican candidates. Difficult. If he had one of those two burdens, Jane, I think he would have won, but both of them weighed him down too much.
A lot of people, I don't have to tell you, are asking the question then, if you knew those burdens were on the table, particularly the party switching one, he had the support of President Obama in ads and otherwise. The president was 20-some miles from the Pennsylvania border yesterday. Why didn't he come to his aid at the last moment? Why?
Well, I can't answer that. You'd have to ask the White House. But look, the president's last-minute appearances, Governor Corzine, our candidate in Virginia, and from Arthur Coakley, didn't turn the day. I think the president did the most important thing, a terrific ad where he said, I love Arlen Specter. Jane, I've run 14 times for election. I've been endorsed by a lot of candidates, and nobody ever said, I love Ed Rendell. So I think there wasn't a Democrat in the state of Pennsylvania who didn't know that Barack Obama supported Arlen Specter. I'm not sure anything else he could have done would have made a difference.
You know, pollsters, though, have been pointing out that when you look at Democratic primary voters, the ones who are coming out on primary day, that Obama gets like an 80% approval rating, and you can't really put a price on the President of the United States in your state on the day before the election, the eve of the election, or election day.
Well, again, if you look at past history, that's probably not true. I think the president did a good job for Arlen Specter. He also did direct mail. He did robocalls. He did a good job. And look, the election, the margin was sufficient. It wasn't a rout, but it was sufficient that I don't think even if the president come and jacked up turnout a few percentage points in the Southeast, it would have made a difference. And remember, another thing that Arlen Specter burden that he undertook was we had a terrible weather day in Pennsylvania. Our overall turnout was less than 23%, and that hurts Arlen Specter because the progressives tend to vote in higher numbers in primaries, and he needed a bigger turnout. Had the turnout grown to 30 or 35%, you might have seen a different result.
Governor, I want to get your thoughts on this. Karl Rove was on earlier and said he saw in different races around the country that voters really were rejecting any candidate who seemed to have a sense of entitlement. They didn't want to be told who to vote for. In this case, Sestak was clear about saying the White House wanted me out of there. They wanted to clear the road for Arlen Specter to walk right through, and voters were angry about that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think there's some of that. I think Karl's observation is probably correct, and that's true in both parties. Obviously, it was operable in Kentucky in the Republican primary, so I think there's something to that. But on the other hand, President Clinton came in for Mark Kritz, our candidate in the special election, and that obviously had a terrific effect. We got a decent turnout in the district, better than statewide turnout, and Mark Kritz, in a district that John McCain carried just 2 years ago, Mark Kritz won a big victory.
Last quick question for you. Going forward now, do you support Sestak? Do you work for him? Has he asked you to?
Oh,
and what about the White House's role in all this? You know, he was also clear about saying that he was offered a job in the administration if he didn't run.
Well, I have no idea whether that's correct or not. I said 10 days ago, if Joe Sestak won, I'd be for him. His views and Arlen Specter's views on the issues were identical. He's a good Democrat. I have no trouble supporting him. I think the president will also support him as well. But let's be clear, Jane, I will do as little as Joe Sestak wants me to do or as much as he wants me to do.
We will see in the coming days. Governor Ed Rendell of Pennsylvania. Governor, get a little sleep. You've been operating on not much, I know. We've seen you out and about a lot. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jane.
There are some new details about a tragic story.